Alon, are you finally ready to taste some hot sauce?
I am, but I'm not because I left it in the car, so I dodge a bullet for another day.
You son of a bitch. You've dodged this for way too long. You lost again in picks. You owe me a lot of hot sauce, Alon.
Yeah, I know. Well, okay, so I have an idea for the next time. What I will do is I will get my hottest hot sauce. I'll actually go over to my parents' place, get their hottest hot sauce, and I know my dad keeps a lot of Triscuits around, so I'll do like a Triscuit hot sauce cereal bowl.
Oh God, no! I wouldn't
With a
wish that on
spoon.
anybody. What's with you and Triscuits and hot sauce? That sounds awful.
I, to me, I did it because I thought it'd be kind of like I was like, oh, this will be tame, and then I did it, and I was like, this is actually a really gross combination. So I'm gonna keep doing it.
What is your dad's hottest hot sauce?
Uh, they have some ghost pepper stuff.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll do. What I will do is This is what I'll probably do. I'll probably get some like good potato chips or something, and then put some ghost pepper sauce on them.
I would say ghost pepper's not anything you want to fuck with. So what
I'm
I'll
not gonna put a
say,
lot. It's
no,
gonna
no,
be
no.
like because it's ghost pepper. It'll be like a drop.
Yeah, I would say what you could do is you could take three chips, put a drop on each one, and then
Yes.
you're good.
Okay.
All right.
I'll have that.
And everybody in the chat's like, where the hell is Alon right now? Is he like is he being held hostage somewhere, or is he doing filing stuff in a bank? Where are you right now, Alon? Where's your location?
Here, we'll do the tour. This is my lovely office. You can see the window right over there.
Nice.
Usually I sit over there, but today I decided to sit at this seat, and yeah, it's kind of like a jail dormitory with desks.
Yeah, Alon does. You teach a class late at night. That's why we do this at 8:15 on
I don't
Tuesdays.
teach one. I take one later.
Oh, take one. My bad.
Yeah.
Yep. Alon also goes to UNLV, calls their soccer games, their women's soccer games. He did one last Thursday. Great calls, by the way. You sent them over to me.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Always. That was fun. That was on Mountain West Network. Was the men's game at ESPN Plus, women's, and Silver State Sports Network, local television.
Nice.
So yeah, it was fun.
Just your opinion, man. Alon in for Steven once again. Steven will be returning, I believe, next week. He is coming back to the Bay Area on Wednesday and going straight to work. I told him, give yourself a couple of days to figure things out. Not figure things out, but like get acclimated. Yeah, figure things out. Decide if you want to be a part of this podcast anymore or no. I'm excited to get Steven back, even though I've had a great time with you, Alon. But it's an adjustment. He's getting back to work right away. He was going to do the podcast with me on Saturday if we were going to do one, but I think we're going to do one on Friday this week because we're going to Almanac again, Almanac Brewery in Alameda, so I can chill at my house for a little while before I go to do the show with Tolbert and Cope. So I might knock that out on Friday with you. And then Steven will come back with us next week, maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday. The Warriors are playing next Tuesday night, and I have to be at Harmonic for that show. So it may be a pain in the ass for me to get back in time. So we may do Wednesday next week. Isn't it crazy that basketball is already starting up again? We're having an equinox pretty soon here, Alon, where the sports equinox, where all four major sports going on at the same time. The World Series coming up. So basketball started up again tonight. I wanted to vomit to look at LeBron and Bronny playing together tonight. But yeah, basketball coming back. We got the World Series, hockey, and NFL. So I believe this Monday will be a sports equinox.
I've done the double up before in the Bay Area, obviously, just because it's kind of something most people either in industry or super fans have done, just whether, just a fan of sports. So like, go to a Warriors game or go to a hockey game and then a football game or however you want to do it. I think I've done maybe, I can't remember which one I did, but I did I think a combination of a baseball game and a basketball game before, but I've never done the sports equinox where all four sports are happening. And I don't know if anybody's ever actually done that.
I think that'd be hard to do in one day. That'd be
It would
pretty
be.
difficult, especially the same city. They're all home.
Yeah. So I don't know how that would work, but I do remember years ago your father was talking on the radio one day about if anybody had done I think this must have been 5 or 6 years ago. There were 3 events in one day happening, and I think one of them was a Sharks game.
Okay.
One of them had to be a basketball game of some sort.
Yeah.
It was on a weekend, and then the other must have been a football game.
I don't recall, but my dad always loved to do. One year, it was actually pretty cool. We did the Father's Day thing where there was a home Giants game and a home A's game. So we watched probably the first 5 innings at Oracle Park, and then we got in the car, drove over to the East Bay to watch the A's game, and we did both in the same day. So that was fun.
That's the double up I've done before. I've done
Yeah.
the A's and the Giants. Well, usually it's a Giants because the weather's so nice. Hopefully during the daytime, and that's the A's later at night.
Yeah, it was easy for us because we started in the city, and then go back towards home in the East Bay. So that's what we did there.
Fun.
But yeah, sports in full effect. By the way, if you're listening to this podcast, check out the bonus podcast that's coming along with it. Me and Greg Silver, KNBR's Greg Silver, just wrapped up. We got a new bonus podcast for you out right now to go into the Warriors season and NBA, and we go into that and our expectations for this season. Jonathan Kuminga, betting on himself, and who we think is going to be in the finals. Or the Warriors going to be more than just a play-in team, or it's been a while since the Warriors have had low expectations along like this. I can't remember. I mean, they're not on national TV to open the weekend tonight or the season. Tonight it's the Lakers and the Timberwolves, and that in years past would always be either Lakers, Warriors, or variation of that. And I think for the first time in 10 years, the Warriors will not open up the season on national TV, and they won't have Klay Thompson, so it's going to be a little adjustment.
Yeah, I mean, we were accustomed to Warriors versus LeBron opening, or I think there were a few times maybe Warriors versus Houston or Warriors versus. I think Warriors
Thunder, whoever.
Yeah, so definitely when Durant came over. So yeah, I mean, the expectations are not where they've been in years past, and it's still kind of crazy to think that this team's only 3 years off of a championship, but it's so far removed from what that team was. That was really just kind of the last gasp of that core, and now with no Klay Thompson, it's a different team, but I think they're going to have a good season. I don't know if it's going to be a great season, but I think I don't think they'll be a play-in team this year. I think they can actually get a better seed than that.
We shall see. I wasn't really thrilled with the offseason, but then again, I'm one of the few fans that are like, I've seen 4 championships. I'm good. A lot of these younger Warrior fans want more and more and more. Before we get into football, just real quick, Alon, you left me in the lurch last podcast, and I'm so mad at you for that. No, do not worry whatsoever. Shit happens. All good. How was the wedding in Nevada?
It was fun. Was my good friend Connor, who you met one time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he just got married. He was engaged for about a year with his fiance. They'd been together for 3 or 4 years, and it's really nice. It was at a private estate, probably about 100 people at the wedding. So
nice.
a little, not huge, but not tiny either. So yeah, it was really fun. I wore a green jacket, which was great, and I got compliments on it, which was nice. No one else wore green except for one other person, and that was the groom. So did not communicate with my vote. So I felt a little bad about that, but it is what it is. There were some women wearing green, so I wasn't all alone. But no, it was fun, and it was great because she's Iranian, so you had that perfect. We had Persian food, so we had lamb and
nice.
Just good chicken and all kinds of great salads, and just it was a fun time. That being said, I haven't been up in the Marin Nevada bubble in a while, and going up there, I was definitely like, oh yeah, this is what this is like. Everybody's life is so idyllic up here, and it was nice. It was a nice little vacation.
What kind of shade of green we talking here?
Dark green, like forest green.
Ooh, I like it.
And I wore a shirt that looked like a stained glass, like a Tiffany lamp.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Look at you, styling, profiling.
But Yeah, so really fun wedding. I hadn't been up in that area in a long time, and I was just like, man, I wish I could live here right now, but
Yeah.
up in the hills. But I was gonna ask about weddings. So Steven just got married. Obviously, he's on his honeymoon.
Yep.
Did he do a pre-honeymoon weigh-in or anything like that before the podcast?
Yeah. What do you mean? Like, as far as like talk about like the honeymoon itself, or what do you mean by that?
No, in terms of, because I know the man. I've been following the Instagram stories, Derek, and I know it's been a lot of pizza and a lot of beer and a lot of really good food.
Weigh in,
I want to know.
literal weigh in.
I want to know if the pasta has hit him since the 2 weeks he's been
I
in Italy.
gotcha. I'm not on Instagram, so I have not seen all the stuff that Steven has done. I will ask him how much fatter he's gotten since going on this honeymoon.
I was trying to put it diplomatically, but maybe.
Oh, I could bust his balls. I could, because he's already. You see that one episode we did where he's wearing the Jake LaMotta tank top, and I was like,
Yes.
dude, what are you doing? Yeah, he's gonna come back and look like Jake LaMotta, because that's the famous thing when Robert De Niro had to gain weight for the Raging Bull movie. He went to Italy and just ate.
Oh,
yeah,
that's what he did.
That's what he did.
Oh shit, man! I wish I could get a job like that where I could just put on some dirt.
I know. And then on the flip side, he like got all buff for Cape Fear and just did push-ups all the time.
And then he did that old man boxing movie with.
Oh yeah, with him and Stallone.
Yeah.
That I didn't even bother with that one.
I didn't watch it either. It looked like elder abuse.
I would say The Irishman was more elder abuse, where we were supposed to believe that Robert De Niro was a young man.
Yeah, with the CGI, that was.
I mean, the movie was fine, but the CGI was like, what the hell are we doing here? Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some football here. Week 7 in the NFL. Some news to get to a little later on. Actually, let's do it now, just real quick. Alvin Kamara got paid today. 2 years, $24 million. I was surprised by that because the Saints are in salary cap hell.
Yep.
And I was not expecting him to be traded at all before the trade deadline. I was expecting him to get cut in this offseason and then go younger at running back. I was very shocked that they extended Alvin Kamara. I was not expecting that one. Just your quick thoughts on that, Alon. I was gonna, because now I think he's the second highest paid running back yearly, behind Christian McCaffrey. I could be wrong on that. Maybe Jonathan Taylor's in the mix there, but I was kind of surprised by that one.
He's 29. It's tough for the Saints because it seems like ever since the Sean Payton era ended there, they've been in kind of this perpetual salary cap hell, and they haven't really been able to dig out from under it, and they keep trying to not rebuild, but just keep competing, and we've seen what has happened this season with them. I will say this: he is their most important offensive player outside of having a decent quarterback. I mean, when he goes, that rest of the team goes, but I don't know, it's tough. They're going to need a rebuild, and so I guess they want to keep Kamara around for another 2 years. Maybe they figured that the division they're in is just so historically weak that, maybe they can contend next year or the year. I mean, I'm not saying they're completely out of it this year, but they're only sitting there with 2 wins. It's not looking very good.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was something that they were already they tried to get done during the summer with some serious earnest and just weren't able to, so they did it now. I'm not really sure. I haven't looked at specifics of the contract other than the bottom line number, but what I wonder is if there's some serious opt out there after the first year.
Could possibly be that, but I was kind of surprised by that because it seemed like I was kind of like lip reading, I guess, last Thursday night where he supposedly hugged Sean Payton and said, "Come get me." Who knows if that's actually true?
Yeah.
But no, they inked him up, and he's gonna be there for the next 2 years. I was kind of surprised by that. I don't think he's a bad player by any means. I just think that I thought they would kind of save money with him, and they're not going to. So they might be in salary cap hell for the next 2 years. Also, the holdout is finally over. Hassan Reddick will show up with the Jets. He signed a contract. He's going to play this week for them. And thank God Drew Rosenhaus talked some sense to that guy because this was just fucking insane, to put it lightly.
What was there an official reason as to why it got resolved?
I think
all I did was read the headline, and I was just like, okay, I guess Drew Rosenhaus figured it out, but it doesn't look like much changed.
Yeah, and by the way, good research here by Ernie too. Here, Henry 2 years up to 16 million. So I'm not sure where Alvin Kamara ranks amongst the most paid annually running backs. But as far as Hassan Reddick, we'll find out tomorrow. The players speak to the media. Um, I don't know. I think that he agreed to a trade, and then he got butthurt that nothing was actually done contract wise, and he thinks highly of himself. Um, so yeah, I think what changed was Drew Rosenhaus is like, you got to play, dude. Like, what are you doing? You're gonna
You're
lose
giving away
millions
money.
of dollars.
Yeah.
Show up and play. Lastly, here, Diana Rossini reported this, and I'm surprised by this, but I guess it makes sense. The Rams are shopping Cooper Cup, and they want to deal him so badly that they are willing to take a portion of his salary this year. So if that's the case, then most likely a team will trade for him. That usually is the holdup sometimes where you're like, I don't want to take on all of his salary this year. If the Rams are willing to offer that and they're looking for a second round pick, yeah, I would not be the least bit surprised before the trade deadline in 2 weeks here, exactly 2 weeks, that Cooper Cup is dealt. And I guess they just think that he's getting banged up too much lately. Um, He's 31 years old. Puka Nakua was activated today, so he has the 21 day window to see if he's good to practice. Or I mean, he could practice, but he'd see if he's good to play eventually. So I think that they're more comfortable with Puka, and they're gonna go. Yeah, they're gonna probably deal Cooper Cup here. They'll showcase him Thursday night against the Vikings. Yeah, and Ernie too says right here, Cooper Cup better not go to the Chiefs. You
That's
know,
what I'm worried about.
but that's like if he goes there and then they get Hollywood Brown back and they get Rasheed Rice back, it just seems like, well, they're not going to Rasheed Rice back this season, but Hollywood Brown was supposed to be that slot guy. But maybe Cooper Cup doesn't have to play that role. I mean, Chiefs make sense. I thought the Chargers, I thought
Steelers.
Steelers, I thought the Falcons, because Ray McLeod's their slot guy, but I think an upgrade there. Buccaneers with their injuries right now. Chris Godwin probably out for the season. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of who else I thought about today. Chargers, Chiefs, Steelers. I think I tweeted out who I thought was a good destinations for Mr. Cooper Cup.
How old is Cooper? He's 28.
He's 31. He's
Oh,
31.
oh shoot, he's 31 now.
Yeah. Oh, Vikings. I mean, the team that he's playing against this week.
Yeah, I
I
thought about the Vikings.
Yeah, Kevin O'Connell knows him from the Rams days. Eagles, they're not getting a lot from Jahan Dotson. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to a big team. And yeah, if the Rams are willing to take on his salary and get a second round pick, yeah, I'd say this probably is going to happen.
I think the other team I was thinking about, because my mind initially went Kansas City Chiefs because they're always aggressive and they knew they weren't going to get Devontae Adams just because that wasn't going to happen. I could see that happening. Man, that would really be a boost for them. I did think about the Chargers was interesting, but then my mind went straight to the Steelers. I did think about Minnesota. I do think if they had a little more capital to give away, another NFC North team would be in the mix, and that would be the Bears. I think that would be awesome for Caleb Williams to have a really, really another good receiver with him there, but they don't have the capital to give away to get him. And he probably, even though they have a good record, he probably doesn't want to go to a team that's, still figuring out exactly who they are with the new quarterback and stuff like that. But what was shocking to me about this, Derek, was I thought the player that would get shot by the Rams this year on offense was going to be Matt Stafford. I thought that's the contract that they wanted to get out of, but they're gonna be rolling with him.
Well, we'll see. And I saw this around Twitter today. I don't know if this is true at all. Some guy, I think that like the head of Snapbacks or whatever the fuck company that is, saying that the Vikings are trying to trade for Matthew Stafford. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now. They're playing well with Sam Darnold. They just drafted J.J. McCarthy. We'll see if that actually happens. I would not be the least bit surprised if in the next few years here Matthew Stafford's traded, but I don't see that happening right now.
I see New Era brings up the Bills, and then he said, but obviously Amari, but that would have been a really good fit too.
It would have been, but I think they got their wide receiver right now, and Amari made a big impact in his
Oh
first
yeah,
game. So let's get to it, and let's start with the Raiders. Man, they lose 20-15 to the Rams. Speaking of those Rams, we thought Cooper Kupp was going to come back, but he did not. And Matthew Stafford played fine. The defense came to play for the Raiders. I thought it was just
oh yeah.
that the offense is stuck in the mud, and they're one of the worst offensive units in all of football. I think it's Browns, Giants, and Raiders are right there.
Yeah.
And it didn't help that Aiden O'Connell got injured, broke his thumb, and he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So now the Raiders are bringing in, the likes of Desmond Ritter from, I guess the Cardinals practice squad. Um, Offense wasn't good with Aiden O'Connell, and it got worse with Gardner Minshew. And God, what was he? 15 of 34, throwing 3 interceptions.
And a
Gardner
fumble.
Minshew, Gardner Minshew looks lost right now.
Mhm.
I thought he'd be fun and put some points up, but he just kind of looks like he's freelancing out there in Luke Getsy's offense. I don't really know if he understands it very well, and it seems like he's just scrambling every play and trying to find the open guy, but nothing seems smooth at all with Gardner Minshew. So the only positive I can think of on the offense right now is Brock Bowers. He's playing fantastic. Got stopped on that one catch that led to a questionable decision by Antonio Pierce. So let's start there. What'd you make of that? Antonio Pierce, the game is 20-12 with 2:46 left in the fourth quarter, and the Raiders are on their 9-yard line. They're about to go for it, but they just committed a false start. So they kicked the field goal to make it 20-15 with the expectation they'll get the ball back. And they do, but then Gardner Minshew throws excuse me, throws a interception with little time left. So what'd you make of that decision, Alon?
Um, I could understand going for it before the false start penalty. That offense is so putrid right now that I think as soon as they backed up 5 yards, Antonio Pierce was just like, I need points. My defense is good enough right now that they'll get the ball back. So he was right about that. And I know they flash the analytics on the screen. Oh, they should go for it. You know what? I want to see the analytics for the Raiders offense only. I want to see how good the Raiders offense only has been in
Yeah.
situations this year where they have to get 7 to 9 yards on a fourth down with Gardner Minshew being the quarterback. It's probably not good. So I didn't have a problem with the decision. Gardner, and I actually thought Antonio Pierce did a good job of managing the game for the Raiders. The defense, I mean, they played with half a team the other day. That's you put it best, Derek. The defense did pretty well, and the offense is he's bottom 3 in the league. I can make an argument it's the worst because of the fact they have a veteran at quarterback who just can't get it done. I mean, it's probably right there with the Browns. Gardner Minshew looks like he's unplayable. That's why they went out and got Desmond Ritter. That doesn't mean that Minshew's not going to start next week just because he's been around the team now for X amount of weeks, months, really. But as soon as Ritter gets even, this much of the playbook down, he's going to be in the game. I can't imagine a situation where, I mean, you can almost tell that at times on the sideline when Minshew's making these mistakes, and they sometimes will show Antonio Pierce and like there's nothing else he can do but just be like, what is this? Like,
yeah,
it's beyond the frustration factor. It's to the point of this is really my quarterback, and it's horrible. I really do think the Raiders would have won the game had Aiden O'Connell been in it because I don't think Aiden O'Connell would have turned the ball over 4 times. He just wouldn't have. And they may win that.
But do
game.
they score a touchdown with him, Alon? Because the offense, I mean, 5 field goals.
No, they didn't score a touchdown with him, but he didn't turn the ball over. And I know he was barely in there, but he's never had a game where he's turned the ball over 4 times. And I'm looking at Minshew now in back-to-back game or every time he plays now, it's at least 2 turnovers.
Yeah.
So,
No, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say all of the Rams' points came on short fields / defensive score. So, and all from turnovers. So, I mean, you're just not going to win football games that way. Minshew's unplayable. What a mistake by Tom Telesco to sign him. unless they were totally duped. That he just looks shot. His arm, he never had the most amazing arm, but it doesn't even look like he can drive the ball without really stepping in. I mean, there's nothing there, and he just
Yeah.
misses throws. So it's bad. They bring in Desmond Ritter, which will be interesting. He was Trey Tucker's college quarterback at Cincinnati, but Desmond Ritter is not exactly a shining example of ball security either.
No.
So is he a fix? He's a fix over Minshew, but he's not a fix. He's a let's try to get this boat into port towards the end of the season kind of guy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sorry.
the Raiders just have a really bad quarterback problem, and they're going to lose a lot of games because of it.
Yep. That sums it all up. I mean, this kind of feels like 2003, where the Raiders were coming off a Super Bowl, and then they had the worst season of a team that was in the Super Bowl the previous year. Rich Gannon got hurt. Then they went with Marcus Tuiasosopo. Tuiasosopo got hurt. Then you had like the likes of Rick Meyer playing quarterback that they had to sign out of nowhere. That's what this feels like. It feels like, okay, Aiden O'Connell's hurt, but also not great. So then we got Gardner Minshew, and he's just playing terrible. So let's go out and get Desmond Ritter. Just a lot of stuff to fill the time until ultimately they're going to go a new direction quarterback-wise. And that's why, I know I see a lot of Raider fans kind of like being happy, like, look at Devontae Adams. He went from 1-2-5 team to another, and he's all shitty on the bench and sad that they lost the game. I get that, but also at the same time, can you blame Devontae for wanting to leave? At this point, I understand it. I don't condone like, oh, I got a hamstring injury and blah blah blah, whatever. Whatever happened there, I don't know if it's true or not. Who's to say that he actually wasn't hurt? But the quarterback situation is awful. So I totally get why Devontae wanted to go. As far as the decision with Antonio Pierce, Tom Tolbert was talking about it on his radio show, and he was making me laugh because he was like, I bet the Rams. So the Raiders totally screwed me there because I believe it was 7.
7.5, yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that they kicked extra field goal, they didn't go for it. I totally get why Antonio Pierce didn't do it, because he did not have faith in his offense. It is very similar to the decision that Matt LaFleur made years ago in the NFC Championship game, where they were down by 8, and he decided to kick the field goal to make it 31-26 in hopes of getting the ball back. They never got the ball back, though. And a lot of people thought that was a dumb decision. I thought it made sense because you can't, with the way that his offense was playing, you really can't count on them to score a touchdown there. There's a difference between believing your offense can score than not going for it, and being safe and having more faith in your defense, and then giving your offense an opportunity to score a touchdown to win the game. Now, on the flip side, Josh McDaniels did this, I believe, a year ago against the Steelers, where it was, what was it, 23-15?
Yes.
He kicks a field goal to make it 23-18. They get the ball back, but Jimmy throws a horrible interception. And a lot of people were killing Josh McDaniels. Now, the reason why that decision was fucked up was because earlier in the game, Josh McDaniels went for it. Now, it must have been enough failed fourth down conversions where he decided to change his mind and wanted to get the ball back. But I don't know. I kind of like Josh McDaniels. There is no rhyme or reason to Antonio Pierce's decision-making. It's just all based on feel. So I get why he didn't go for it, but that's more telling on the offense, and that's a bigger issue. So I don't know. I think that I think we are in for a really bad Raiders season. It's already started. 2-5. They play the Chiefs this week. I mean, the Chiefs are banged up, but I don't see it getting any better. There's a few wins you could see maybe here or there, but for the most part, I see this team drafting in the top 5, and I think that's a good thing. I do think it's a good thing. I think you need to evaluate this roster. I need to see what you have going forward. It's obvious that their future quarterback is not on this football team. I think Tom Telesco is kind of sitting back this season and saying, okay, what do I have? What do I have in this team? And there's pieces here. Obviously, Max Crosby, Brock Bowers, other guys on the defense. But yeah, they needed to do this. And I I think we're in for a long season. I know we'll talk about the Raiders on this podcast, and I don't think that people should really get their hopes up. I think it's just this is kind of what they want. I kind of got that sense after Mark Davis at the owners' meetings was like, yeah, we traded Devontae for Tom Brady, and with that, to me, that seems like I could give a shit about this season. That's that's kind of what it feels like to me.
I think as soon as they found out, because the Baltimore game was kind of, you know, it was a massive band-aid over a lot of issues that the team had
Yes.
been having offensively.
If they play
And
Baltimore now, they get routed.
of course, yeah, I agree. And then Cleveland, kind of the same deal. I'm not saying they get routed by Cleveland, but what I'm saying is Cleveland, same deal. It's like, oh, you won, so a lot of the deficiencies, don't
Yes.
worry, kind of tend not to worry about them. But it really took this last 3-game stretch to see that Gardner Minshew just, for whatever reason, doesn't have it. And I don't like to sit here and say players suck or any of this kind of stuff, but he just does. He's not getting the job done, and it's not
Yeah.
just that he's not getting the job done. He's actively hurting the team with his play.
Yeah.
So you just can't have that. And I never am rooting for draft position. I'll never be one of those people. I want my teams to win every single week, every single time they play. I don't care, and I don't care if tanking makes you better or anything like that. That being said, what a season like this does give you an opportunity to do, Derek, like you said, for Tom Telesco, is to evaluate everything else on the roster and see what he likes going forward and see what he doesn't like going forward. I think obviously they're going to draft a quarterback, but we're so far away from that. It's I think what's really important is to see is which players on the offensive side are going to come back and keep their jobs, because there's quite a few on the defensive side where it's like, oh, they're kind of in, and you don't really, there's not a whole lot of things that need to be done on that side of things, other than maybe finding a suitable replacement for Marcus Epps, unless Polamalu kind of takes that job and runs with it. But on the offensive side, the quarterback position, you're going to end up needing a revamped running back room. That was another problem this year. Although I thought Madison did play decent.
He did.
The other day. And a lot of that has to do with the offensive line, these younger offensive linemen getting better. But I really want to know who on that offensive side of the ball, the coaching staff specifically, is going to stay. I think Antonio Pierce made a great move by moving Luke Getsy up into the booth. It seems to have made some difference, at least with the running game and maybe the styles of play he was calling. But, there's going to need to be some changes. One thing I will say about the head coach, AP, I get the feeling that he is not a one and done right now. And, it would take something super serious to have them go in another direction. As of right now, that could change towards the end of the season, obviously. But I don't view him as a one and done head coaching candidate.
Why does because at one point you thought maybe he would be. Why has your opinion changed on that?
His body language, but it's not even so much that. It's that I'm not reading a whole lot. Like locally, a lot of the good local writers are pretty good at like kind of putting that pressure on, whether applied more from being fed tea leaves by people within the organization, or it's their own intuition or the things that they kind of know from their everyday beat. I'm just not seeing that kind of reporting out of here locally in Las Vegas. So right now, I'm not saying that he's 100% safe or anything. I'm just saying like his seat's not as hot as it would be for someone else in his situation. So right as of now, through 7 weeks, I don't like if the season ended, I don't think he'd get the axe. I just don't.
I would agree that it probably would be unfair to fire him given the way that this roster was constructed.
Yes.
And it may be that they were honest to Devontae behind the scenes, and Antonio Pierce is like, look, man, this is what it is. They told me and Tom that this is kind of evaluation season. I don't know if we're going to win a lot of games. If you want to be here, cool. If not, we'll move you to New York. The thing with me though is if you're going to have a lot of, like, we're already hearing rumors about Brady wanting to lure Belichick here, and I don't buy that one at all.
I don't either. I don't think Bill Belichick would take the job.
I don't think so. I think that Brady and Belichick have had their issues in recent years, but I don't think I mean, maybe he may give him a ring and say, are you interested in the job? I think that there's going to be teams in the NFC East for Belichick to choose from, whether it's the Giants or the Patriots or the Cowboys, and I think that's where he'll ultimately go. One of those three teams. But I look at a guy like Mike Vrabel as possibly being the guy that Brady would be interested in. I think it fits. I think I kind of get like a Raider kind of feeling from Mike Vrabel. He'll be kind of a hard ass, but have fun with the guys. But maybe, if we're being honest, like maybe this whole season's just been Antonio Pierce figuring out who needs to be on this team and who needs to go. But I don't know. I'll reserve judgment until we're towards the end of the season and thinking if he should stay or go. But as far as making moves to better the franchise, I know last time you and I were doing a podcast, I said that the Raiders should consider trading away Max Crosby for 2 first-round picks. Now, do I think they'll do it? No. If I'm being completely honest here, that's what I would do. But I also understand that Max Crosby is integral to this team right now. And, you can't just trade away every player. And the Raiders may be bad enough where you don't need to do that. So now, does it help? Absolutely. And, Brad Holmes, I guess, is working the phones. Dan Campbell, I think, was on with Rich Eisen today, and he said he's working hard to get a pass rusher. So that probably will materialize. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Brad Holmes did call the Raiders and said, what do you want from Max Crosby? And they're just telling him this is a non-starter. We're not doing this. But if they're offering 2 first-round picks, I would consider it. I did play the audio last podcast of Max Crosby talking about, he has no time for rebuilds. And I know a lot of people ran with that quote. I even said it's not really a ringing endorsement to be part of the Raiders right now. But he made things a little clearer tonight. He did his podcast, and he's pretty adamant here that he wants to stay with the Raiders. Here's Max Crosby on his podcast.
They've started a whole
movement,
pandemonium, a
It's
whole
a revolution.
movement, like a revolution. And it's like, I'm sitting here innocently just doing what I do.
Yep.
And I feel like, I got to address it with my teammates. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not trying to leave. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I know it's a business. You know what I mean? I don't have 100% control, all that, but I want to be here. I want to be silver and black. I'll say it loud and clear. I want to be a Raider. I've said that over and over and over again. But yeah, it's business part of it too. I don't have 100% control of that, but I know at the end of the day, just seeing all the craziness, it's been insane. You know what I mean? I can't even open my phone. Dave.
So yeah, and he's talking about how he's seen a lot of, fan photoshops of him in a Lions jersey. So I mean, that's good that Max Crosby is saying I want to be here, and I've always believed that. Now, if it came up where the Raiders said, "Hey, there's an offer on the table for you to go to the Lions. Do you want to do this?" He probably would say, "Okay, yeah, sure." But that is as clear as day that he's not forcing his way out. He wants to be here, and I commend him for that. It's just a matter of is he willing to put up with more bullshit this season? Because I can't see this getting any better. And last year he was the one that said, if you don't hire Antonio Pierce, I want to be traded. Is he willing to go through another losing season?
I think he has to be willing to do so. I said this either the last time I was on, Derek, or the time before, that he has some ownership in this. He went out there and said, I will not be happy. And in fact, I might not want to be here if you don't hire Antonio Pierce, him along with a lot of other players. So, that's one of the things. If you want to have some input on stuff like that and you put your foot down, you do kind of have to take some of the results of it when they're not positive. And so he does have to put up with it. I will say this about Max Crosby. He's been phenomenal for the Raiders ever since he's been here. But I love that he goes out there and says that, and it's believable. And it, in so many ways, it reminds me of, the way Derek Carr was. And maybe that's because they shared a locker room together. He has that mentality of I don't want to rebuild. And what I'm saying is it's not, I don't want to be here to see this get better. I want it to get better now, and I want to win. And I think he wants to be a Raider. I don't think. I think it would take a lot of. We've went over it before, but it would take a lot of assets to move him from another team. I don't think anybody's going to offer that. And yeah, he's silver and black. I mean, he's got it tatted on his arm. So for whatever that means, I think he's here for a long time, and I'm glad. And they need him to be here because he's the team leader. He's not only the best player, he's the team leader, and he is, for better or for worse, what people come to see when they go to the games. If the Raider fans who are still showing up, they go to see Max Crosby. He's got the most popular jersey. I mean, just so you can't get rid of him. But yeah, the NFL media and the fan-driven media, especially on Twitter and stuff like Instagram, they always get carried away with whatever the big hypothetical trade is or anything. I don't think there's any smoke here at all, so no fire to worry about if you're a Raider fan.
I don't think so either, but I we'll see. I mean, I would be surprised if they actually made a move for him to trade him to the Lions. I think the more feasible option though would be like as a Darius Smith for the Lions, possibly.
I agree with that as well. Like I was kind of thinking through some of the names. Zadarius Smith would be a good one.
Clowney.
Clowney's great because you bring him in and you know exactly what you're going to get out of him. Over in New Orleans, if they keep struggling, you have
Cam Jordan.
You have Chase.
Yeah, he's not.
I bring him up because Niner fans know all about him.
Yeah, and Lions fans know about him too. They exposed him in that NFC Championship game. I don't know if they would go after Chase because there's a clip going around social media of him just getting blasted by Garrett Bowles on Thursday night.
Yeah. Another type of player, even though he won't be available, would have been like Matthew Judon. Had he been in another situation besides Atlanta, I could see him being the kind of player that goes over there to go help.
No, definitely. But yeah, I would be surprised if Max Crosby gets moved. But if the Lions get desperate enough, maybe they will. But their defense played well enough to win that game against Minnesota. We'll get into it a little later.
Yeah.
But as far as the big game, the Niner game against the Chiefs, Super Bowl rematch. They lose once again to the Chiefs, 28-18. And this was, as Kyle Shanahan put it, an ass kicking.
Mm-hmm.
They dominated this game. I know at one point it kind of felt weird because it was 14-12, and I was like, damn, well, the Niners are in this game. But it never felt like they were from the jump. Like, Brock played his worst game since Christmas. He was just thrown off the whole game. And I think what really threw the offense off was Deebo Samuel. He went from him being, injured with what was like a wrist injury, whatever it was. I forget exactly what it was going into the game. But he was gonna play, and the night before he gets a sickness. And I know some Niner fans probably not knowing the situation were questioning, like, come on, man. Like, play. What are we doing here? Like, we need you in this game. Aiyuk's hurt. We need you to play. And he was breathing hard on the sideline. I was like, does he have COVID? Like, what's going on here? Kyle Shanahan then says on the teleconference the next day, he's got pneumonia. He's got, fucking, fluid in his lungs. So I totally understand why Deebo didn't want to fuck around and play in that game. I get it. Aiyuk getting hurt does not help either. That's brutal. I mean, let's be completely honest. He was not playing great before that. The contract holdout has fucked with him for this season. It's not the reason he got hurt. He got popped right on his knee. That's why he tore his ACL.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, he had a brutal drop. But it sucks. And a big reason why he wanted to get the contract done was for situations like this. So while it sucks that he's out for the year, I'm sure he's at least like, well, at least I got my deal because I don't have to worry about this now. Like, can you imagine if he didn't get the deal done? He plays on just his money this season, and then next year he's gonna be treated like Chris Godwin right now, where he's hurt and probably will have minimal free agency. Like coming off an ACL tear, that's rough. He may not start the season right away. So Niners got to deal with that. Before I keep rambling along, just your thoughts on really, the Niners beaming out. I mean, like a lot of factors came into play. The Chiefs were the better team, But the Niners having their top 3 receivers in Debo, Aiyuk, and Juwan Jennings out with the hip really fucked this game up.
No, it did. They weren't able to sustain anything through the air. Turnovers, once again, do them in. I mean, that's kind of been the theme in all their losses is the turnover numbers. But I think this is something about the Chiefs. They can win games where Patrick Mahomes does not play well and does not even play like a superhero. He's just not Patrick Mahomes. And he didn't have an amazing game by any standards, but they brutalized the Niners on the ground. The running game for Kansas City is a real thing, and they're physical. They're just a physical ass team. It's, we all get blown away by Mahomes and how good he is at airing things out and making all these magical plays, but they play tough, whether it's the Spagnuolo-led defense or whether it's their offensive line, like opening up lanes. They're good. And you're right. When it was 14-12, because I was watching it and I went, oh, interesting. The Niners, at home, they're going to put up a stiff fight and then finally get the monkey off their back in terms of beating this Kansas City Chiefs team. No, they had an answer for them in the second half, and it didn't seem to matter. That being said, this game does look different with actual wide receivers out there for Brock Purdy, but I feel so bad for Brandon Aiyuk because he was maybe 3 weeks ago, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, just starting to show some flashes of some of the things he can do, really hauling in a lot of balls and making some good catches. And then this happens, and I guess the one silver lining for him, and good for him getting that contract, because like you said, he'd be on the free agency scrap heap next year, and that's not a fun situation coming off an injury. No one's going to sign you to big money, but I don't know. I don't really know where the Niners are right now. The turnovers are killing them, and I don't, other than simply saying take care of the darn ball, I don't know what they can do. And so they've cleaned the fumbles up, but now the interceptions are still there, and I don't know. The Chiefs maybe are not a fair assessment because they're one of the best teams in the league, but I thought the Niners were one of the best teams in the league despite record. But they just didn't have it. They didn't have it against Kansas City.
They did not. And I want to get to that in a little bit here about what you said about where are they right now. As far as the Chiefs, it's crazy how they're able to reinvent themselves. They were a pass-happy offense when Patrick Mahomes came into this league and kind of kept that way for the first Super Bowl win, 2020, really until 2022 they were like this. And then just last year they changed in being more of a defensive-oriented team. Steve Spagnuolo, I would not be the least bit surprised if he gets some head coach looks this offseason for what he's done with this defense. I mean, remember how bad this defense was with the likes of Frank Clark and Dee Ford, where they were just like a pass rush team, but they gave up a shit ton of points. This defense is great in every phase on the defensive line, linebacker, secondary. In Mahomes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like if this was any other team where the defense was not good with the Chiefs and they lost a few games, everybody be like, what's going on with Mahomes right now? He's thrown 6 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, but no one gives a shit because they're 6-0. And they have the best start to a Chiefs season under Mahomes. That's incredible. And they're just playing complimentary football. Travis Kelce's not lining it up. They're running with guys like Kareem Hunt and Carson Steele, but they're going to get these guys back. Isaiah Pacheco will come back. Hollywood Brown, probably towards the playoffs. Xavier Worthy, he's the only guy that gives them offensive explosion, and because he's a rookie, that only happens sparingly. So it's amazing what the Chiefs are doing, and they know what to do against the Niners. So I'll ask you, Alon, are the Niners a good football team? Because coming into the season, we all thought they had an amazing roster. It was just a matter of can they win the Super Bowl? I think this team is closer right now to being like the 2020 Niners, where they were coming off the Super Bowl and they had so many injuries. Jimmy was out for the season. Nick Bosa was out for the season. It's not that heavy, but we don't know when McCaffrey's coming back. It sounds like the bye week. And I would tell Niner fans, don't expect McCaffrey to save the day. They're going to ease him back in if he comes back at all. That's the way I kind of see it. But are the Niners, are they a good football team?
They are. I'll die on that hill. I for sure think they are. Like, I think they'll go out next week and beat the Cowboys.
Okay.
Not that the Cowboys are amazing this year, but I mean, good teams have to beat the teams that they're supposed to. I think the Niners are still a really good team. I think they have a good quarterback despite the turnover problems they've had this year. The injuries, no question. I was thinking about the 2020 season as well, and other seasons they've had under Kyle Shanahan, where it's just the injury bug just seems to bite them very, very hard. You mentioned Christian McCaffrey. If he comes back after the bye, that's great. But that 4-game stretch that they play there after the bye week is not a walk in the park. They have the Bucks, they have the Seahawks, the Packers, and the Bills, and 3 of those 4 games are on the road. So kind of a real fun way to come back into the NFL after being injured for McCaffrey. It's not the best, but they're a good team. They're 3-4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the season's not anywhere near from being over. They're going to make the playoffs. I think that they still win that division, but it's tough. Their margin for error is shrinking. That's really the problem. Is you don't want to be in situations where you have to win. You want to be in a situation where you have a little bit of wiggle room. And right now, under 500, it is not a great place for them to be. But if this team gets healthy in a hurry as well, all of a sudden they could go on a 5 or 6 game win streak, and they've shown they can be dominant at times. I think something, if this season continues the way it is right now, Derek, right? One of the things they're going to look back at, for instance, might be a game like the Rams game. It'll be a few of those where it's like, wow, we didn't put that away when we should have. So I think they're a good team. I just think they're missing that last piece of kind of finishing quality right now. And in all honesty, that's McCaffrey being out. It's the red zone offense. It's the turnovers. It's the not having the security blanket of being able to dump the ball off to him and get 8 or 9 yards, on a little swing pass. So it's tough, and they're adjusting, and it's not easy to adjust. And now having your big money wide receiver out, and poor Debo, no one wants pneumonia. Like, he should stay out as long as he possibly has to, because you don't want anything bad to happen to him. But when he does come back, he's going to have to be a freaking workhorse.
Yeah.
So,
and sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, Derek. I said they're in a tough situation because of injury. It is not because they're poorly, and I'm sure there's people out there, Shanahan looks a little, like the job has aged him a bit, things like that. You know what? No, he knows what he's doing. That coaching staff knows what they're doing, but you can only make a meal with the ingredients you have. And right now they don't have a full cupboard. They don't have a drawer full of stuff to make a beautiful dish. And so
they're pantry, whatever you want to call it, refrigerator.
What?
Pantry, refrigerator, yeah. Whatever you want to call the location of where your food will be.
Yeah, so that's what I would say, Derek. They're doing the best with what they have right now, and they need to get healthy. And there's no other way around it.
They do. Yeah, I would say they're a talented team. And for whatever reason, they're not playing like a good football team. I think that injuries are the majority of why they're losing games. But I do think Kyle needs to adapt a little bit. I think that he has to realize that he doesn't have McCaffrey. He needs to get the ball to different spots to get a little more creative with the play calling. Yeah, I do still think they make the playoffs. I still think they win this division. I think they're the best team in that division by default. But if I had to rank them with the rest of the NFC right now, I don't think they're as good as the Lions right now. I don't think they're as good as the Packers. I don't think they're as good as the Eagles. And I know people are going to be mad about that one. The Eagles look a lot better in their win against the Giants. I know people are going to be like, oh, the Giants, please. It's how they won the game with their ability to run the football and to get to, rush the passer. This is, the Eagles look like the best they did in a while, probably since the 2022 season. But just focusing on the Niners right now. The Aiyuk injury is brutal. And it's not like he was doing much before that, but it changes things. I do believe that if the Niners had a successful season and everybody was healthy, in order to save salary cap situations next offseason, they were going to move on from Debo. And I know that he restructured his contract, but I thought they were going to trade him. And there was rumors about them trying to trade him at the draft this past year. Now that Aiyuk is out and probably will miss the beginning of next season, they're going to hang on to Debo. That changes that course now. Maybe it's Kittle. That's the guy that's on the chopping block. I don't know. And there was prior to, all this stuff, Ayuk's injury, Diana Rossini had Debo Samuel listed as a possible trade candidate at the deadline. I didn't think that was ever going to happen, and I don't think it's happening now. And I would tell Niner fans, I know people are going to start listing off, like, who are some wide receivers they could trade for? I don't think they're going to trade for anybody. I don't think this is like a quick fix. I don't think they're a good team like the last 2 years. They just want to make a move to, get up on other teams. I mean, John Lynch may be aggressive and go after somebody. I don't think they want to trade away draft picks to get a running back or a wide receiver, maybe a linebacker. But I see people throwing out like maybe they should go for DeAndre Hopkins or Deontay Johnson or any other wide receivers. I don't see that happening. I think they're going to play Pearsall. I think they're going to play Cowing. I think Debo's going to be their guy, and I think Juwan Jennings is going to be their guy. Now, Debo was released from the hospital today, so we'll see if he's well enough to play this Sunday. But if not, then you're rolling out there with, hopefully Juwan's good to go, but he may be out, and Kittle's day to day with I believe, an ankle injury. So you could be running your wide receiver unit with Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, Ronnie Bell. It could get tough, and I don't want to hear like, well, Brock can't handle it. Then you give any quarterback like those receivers, and it may not pan out for them. I will give praise to Ricky Pearsall coming back from his gunshot wound and playing in that game. I mean, that's incredible. Great story for him, and hopefully he becomes, more of a great player in this offense. I really have high expectations for Ricky Pearsall. I think he's going to be a great wide receiver in this league. The Niners just have they're just not lucky right now with injuries. It is brutal. It is very reminiscent of 2020. But like after every loss, it just feels like it gets worse. Like Javon Hargrave out for the season. Now Brandon Aiyuk out for the season. You didn't plan on McCaffrey not being there, but maybe he comes back against Tampa after the bye week, but I don't know. And also, I know my dad threw this out there. I think this is kind of ridiculous. He thinks that maybe he speculated that the Achilles issue that Christian McCaffrey is suffering from right now maybe stemmed from the practice field that they had to deal with at UNLV.
At UNLV? That's interesting.
And the Niners have had a bad. I mean, like they're not publicly coming out and saying anything, but they are absolutely pissed about that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I can't say if that's right or wrong. I think it's just total speculation on my dad's part. I do think McCaffrey comes back this season. I do. I don't know if it's as soon as after the bye week, but everything we hear, it sounds like it's trending in that direction. They're just not lucky right now. They're exhausted, I think, mentally and physically, and they're just going through it right now. And I think a win over the Cowboys would change things, but I don't know if that's guaranteed right now, given the injuries.
So you mentioned the words. A couple of questions here, Derek. You mentioned the word tired, exhausted, mentally and physically. Totally, they need that bye week like so bad because just physically because of all the injuries. But do you buy into any of the narrative maybe out there that fans and some others put out there that maybe the coaching staff even is mentally tired? I just don't see it. I mean, these guys they live and breathe this stuff. They know what they're doing. It's
tired in the sense like Shanahan's like over it. Like what do you mean tired?
I mean, he just because he's now going more gray doesn't mean that he's lost his fastball.
No, I think there's a ton of pressure to win. Sure. And I mean, I had my doubts. I thought this team was too talented not to win, at least the NFC West this year. I didn't know if they would get back to the Super Bowl. But just hearing Debo, I forget what exactly he said, but I remember one interview where he was just like, this was supposed to be it. Like, this was it this past year. And I think a lot of guys are like, man, they all are vocalizing in the locker room, we could do it again. We could do it again. We're that good. But I think there has to be a little bit of doubt in each player's mind on the Niners of like, can we actually do this? Like we come so far, and every time we just get, for lack of a better word, fucked in the ass. And, so close to beating the Chiefs the first time, you're so close against the Rams, the NFC Championship game. See your rookie phenom quarterback get his UCL teared in Philly. And then last year they lose in overtime to the Chiefs. I don't envy Niner fans. I think like you could say like who has it worse, Raider fans or Niner fans? Raider fans, it's brutal. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. They're used to it. With Niner fans, you're like so close. Like if you or me were watching the Raiders have a lead in overtime, the Super Bowl, we're like, we're gonna win this thing, and then it's a total tease. Then Mahomes just rips the life out of you, and he does it again. It sucks. I feel for Niner fans. It totally sucks. I just feel like I still think this team's gonna make the playoffs. It just may not be a Super Bowl season, and that's tough to swallow.
Yeah, so no, I mean I agree. It's like Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the mountain over and over again. I mean, how many times can you really gear up to do that before it takes a toll on you? Yeah, no, I feel for Niner fans as well. I mean, I've never been one of those Raider fans who's like, we hate tonight. No, I mean, if they're successful, they're successful. I think they have a super talented team. And I go around telling people how talented they are. And then they repay me with 3 and 4. But no, the real thing for them is they do need physical rest for sure just to get healthy. You brought up linebacker a few minutes ago, Derek, and I thought that was interesting. And the first name that popped into my head was someone who was inactive for a couple of weeks there for the Jets. It was C.J. Mosley, and I think something like with the way the Jets are tail spinning, not saying they can't get back on track, but that's not a good situation over there. Maybe they go get a guy like him. That would help the linebacking room.
I don't know if the Jets. I don't think people are going to be willing. The Jets are going to be willing to trade off assets of their team because I think they still believe that they can win. So yeah, I don't see. And C.J. Mosley was inactive because of an injury, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I think they still want to play with him. I mean, I thought a guy that you were going to bring up was the Devin White, who was inactive for the Eagles.
Yeah.
And got cut, but no one seems to go after him right now. And I think that I like he didn't play at all, so I can't say like look at the tape and see how bad he is. But I guess there's just a thing out there of a bad reputation for Devin White right now.
Yeah, I didn't get that because Devin White was such a fun prospect and everything, and super fast, speedy linebacker, and then doesn't even play this year, and now no one's picking him up. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe they make a trade with the Raiders for Robert Spillane.
No, the Raiders can give away Robert Spillane
or Divine Diablo.
No. Yeah. And the Raiders and Niners ain't doing a deal. You know that.
I know.
All right, let's go around the league with some quick hits. So let's start in London, where the Jaguars really needed to win badly because they're London's team and they got shit stomped by the Bears the week before, and now they're going to play another rookie quarterback, Drake May. And it's a 10-0 lead for the Patriots. You're like, oh, man, are they going to leave Doug Peterson behind in London? And they come back and score 32 points. They win 32-16. I'm really impressed with Drake May. I think that he's fun to watch. He moves around and finds open guys. He gives life to that offense. But as far as the Jaguars, I think that they have a good running game going right now with Tank Bigsby. And Trevor Lawrence looked really good in that game. He's got a good connection with Brian Thomas Jr. I think it's the only guy he trusts along with Christian Kirk. Not really sure Gabe Davis is a good pickup for them right now. I don't know what's wrong with him. I will say this. I think Antonio Pierce has put his foot in his mouth a couple times since being Raiders head coach, but he's never going to call out his team in the sense of what Gerard Mayo did. Now, Antonio Pierce did say, we got some guys making business decisions. And, I wonder who exactly he was questioning there. And maybe it needed to be said. Maybe he did notice in film that there's guys not going as hard as they can. But we know the deal with the Patriots this year. They are not a very talented roster. So I wonder what Gerard Mayo's motive is by calling out his team and saying they're soft. And that's a strong statement to make. And I think you can make that statement if you're an established coach. When you're a rookie coach and you're a former player, he was a really good linebacker, but maybe he's just like, I'm not seeing physicality out there, and that could be valid. I do find it very interesting that Belichick, when asked about it, is just straight up like, "Nah, I think that's disrespectful, and I coach these guys, and they're not soft." If he had more respect for Gerard Mayo, he probably would back off of those comments. I kind of think that Belichick is pissed at Gerard Mayo for kind of going behind his back and doing a deal with Kraft, because what was reported was that Robert Kraft made a contract with Gerard Mayo this past offseason, or the 2023 offseason, to tell him you will be the head coach next year. So for a year, Gerard Mayo had to sit on it and then took over. It was kind of like how Jim Harbaugh is not a fan of Jim Tomsula anymore, because he kind of went behind his back and went to go get that job. I think Bill has some animosity towards Gerard Mayo and how things went with him getting the head coaching job in New England.
Yeah, I mean, natural, right? No one wants to be usurped by someone that you've brought along and helped, break into, not only as a player, break into the league, but also as a coach. So yeah, I can understand that. When I hear things like this, for instance, what Gerard Mayo said, especially being the new kid on the block as a head coach, it makes me think that he's almost got some assurance of security. And that there's, nothing short of something conduct detrimental to the team that he could do where they would show him the door after a year. So I don't know. In hockey, you hear this so much more often, where coaches will call out their players in the media and say our team's soft. And in football, even though it's such a physical and violent sport, similar to how hockey definitely used to be, and hockey's still physical, but it's kind of an unwritten, like, you just don't really call your team soft, especially to the media. Maybe you do in a closed door environment, in the theater room where you're going over film and just say, hey, what are we doing? We're not tackling. But I don't know. I can tell you this. It tells me there's going to be a lot of players there that are not going to be there next year. That's for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, weird move. What do you gain? I mean, maybe there's the temporary motivation of guys saying, no, F you, coach. I'm not soft. I'll prove it to you next week. But I mean, you can only go to that well one, maybe two times, once per season for sure, and maybe once per tenure.
Yep. He really can't throw that out too much. So we'll see how they respond. And I just think they're not a very good football team. So and he has to realize that. He has to also know what the expectations are. They got lucky to win that first game against Cincinnati. So we'll see what happens there if they play up to better standards against the Jets this week. The Buffalo Bills just totally dominate against the Titans. The Titans go with Mason Rudolph for that game. And they didn't bench Will Levis, they claim. They just think that Will Levis needs to rehab his shoulder a little bit more. They probably could play with Mason Rudolph over to Will Levis, but we'll see. I'm not ready to say that Will Levis can't play in this league. I think it just hasn't panned out the first few weeks. As far as the Bills, they came out a little sluggish, and I kind of maybe expected that, playing on the short week, a Monday night and everything. But then they got things going. And I love their receiving core now. Amari Cooper makes an immediate impact. I think he got 6 catches for 81 yards and the touchdown. He looks good in that number 18. I love the combination of him being their big play wide receiver to then Keon Coleman being their big body receiver in the red zone. And they're going to run the football with James Cook and Ray Davis. Finally, in the postseason, when it snows outside, they will have a running game. They have the 2 tight ends set with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. I am really high on the Buffalo Bills going forward.
I think that Amari Cooper move is massive for them. Like, as soon as that happened, I was like, damn, they were already really good, but yeah, this bodes well for them in the postseason. That's a Super Bowl move for sure. I love that they're finally starting to get Dalton Kincaid involved because I think he can really be a big piece on that team. And Khalil Shakir still got his targets too. So
Yeah.
it looked like Josh Allen had zero problem, dishing that thing out and getting it into the open man. But who's going to cover these guys during the postseason? That's going to be very, very difficult for whoever makes it. I mean, let's just say they end up facing a team like the Baltimore Ravens, right, in the playoffs. The Ravens are a good team. They don't have a secondary that can contend with that. I mean, I can't think of too many teams in the AFC that have a secondary that can contend with all the different talent they have on the outside now. And then you pair that with the running game, which I thought has been getting better and better and better. They by the end of the season, they might be the best team in the NFL.
And what's incredible, excuse me, is Josh Allen has 0 interceptions thrown on the season. That may be the best stat in all of football right now, is Josh Allen is playing really smart football. And I think it's going to get even better with him and Amari Cooper. I think right now, the combination of Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir, Matt Collins, Curtis Samuel, I think this receiving core is better than anything they had with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis.
Yeah, because they definitely have the different body types now.
Yes.
They have the different abilities. They have the pure route runner who does have some game breaking ability now in Cooper. They got the more big bodied receivers. Like, they have a little bit of everything. And then they have one of the ultimate jump ball guys in Matt Collins.
Yep. Speaking of Stephon Diggs, his new team went to Green Bay to take on the Packers against the Texans. And this was a close game, 24-22. The Packers win the game at the end because they made a kicker switch, got Brandon McManus, and I'm glad they did because I think who was whatever the rookie quarterback or rookie kicker was before probably would have missed that kick. So that's a big move to make, and that'll save them some wins. I thought the Packers should have won this game convincingly because defensively they were getting to C.J. Stroud. And C.J. Stroud, I think, finished the day with 10 completions on 21 attempts for a total of 87 yards.
86.
Yeah, he had a rough day. The only reason the Texans were in this game was because Joe Mixon was running crazy on the Packers defense. And the Packers had sloppy turnovers. Jordan Love, I'll say it again, he is more Brett Favre than he is Aaron Rodgers. He'll just throw that thing blindly sometimes. And there was a bad muff punt. But besides all that, I was thoroughly impressed with the Packers. I think right now, the Packers from top to bottom have the best receiving core in all of football. I think I'm impressed with the Bills, like as I just said, but the Packers have the cheapest, the youngest, and probably the most talented wide receiving core in football right now. When you go from Christian Watson to Romeo Doubs to Jaden Reed to Dontavius Wicks, who caught a touchdown, to this guy, Bo Melton, who gets end arounds. I think that they have a very deep receiving core.
And this is without a fully healthy Christian Watson either. Like, got to take that with a little grain of salt. Christian Watson, he's still battling. I think it was that ankle, and I know he's playing again, but he's not 100%. But no, they have a good young receiving core. One thing about this game was I've liked the Packers this year because they've been such a balanced team, and I thought they got away from it a little bit, and that's why you saw the turnovers. I don't think they were as balanced as they had been in games past. As far as CJ Stroud goes, I don't think I'd watched a game where he had been so poor in the NFL. And it's because he was under duress. That being said, I kind of feel like that was a game that they should have stole. They had it until the very end, but CJ Stroud is not going to have many games like that where he passes for under 100 yards. You're just not going to see that. I mean, he's proven that he doesn't play that way. Super good quarterback. If they keep getting a running game like that to go with him, and he brings the passing along, every quarterback's going to have a bad passing game. We already saw Josh Allen this year go 9 for 30. So, there's going to be a clunker here and there. But, yeah, the Packers just keep rolling. They keep finding ways to win, even when, Jordan Love, who's this is his second week now back from injury. Is that right, Derek?
Third, I believe.
Third. So yeah, even when
Or
he's
actually
not,
fourth.
is it fourth?
He played against the Vikings, played against the Rams, Cardinals, and now against the Texans.
That was his fourth. Yeah. So I mean, he's back. He's fully with it. But you're right about that Brett Favre kind of comparison, that comp there. He's just gonna sling it, and sometimes Packers fans are gonna be like pulling their hair out because they win that game by more touchdowns if they just take care of the ball.
Exactly. The Dolphins got good news. It sounds like Tua will play this week. If everything goes according to plan and he practices well and he's cleared, it sounds like he's coming back. And I know people are going to be uneasy about that, but it's his life. It's his decisions. Let's see where it goes. But it's clear the Dolphins needed him back because their quarterback play has been abysmal and awful. And I think in future off seasons, they'll address the backup quarterback position. They need somebody that can fill in for Tua when he could be hurt. But their offense is hard to watch. And if they were healthy, they probably would have won this game convincingly. It is hard to watch Anthony Richardson sometimes too.
Yep.
He has a lot of talent, but man, is he raw and not ready to go. And he's kind of used more as a running back at this point than a traditional drop back passer. He can run, and I know that's part of his skill set. But man, is he hard to watch sometimes. And you see shots of Joe Flacco on the sideline, you're like, they could be a lot better with him. And they won this game 16-10. But there'll be games where, thank God the Colts played, Snoop Huntley. if they play a better team, let's say they flex this game for whatever reason. It was Jaguars Eagles on Sunday Night Football in 2 weeks. I thought, Doug Peterson coming back to Philly, Trevor Lawrence first overall pick. The Jaguars are not, a great team right now, but you want Philly out from the East Coast on Sunday Night Football. They flexed that to Colts, Vikings. I know both teams are above 500, but I would not put that in Sunday night prime time. But whatever. Watch what Anthony Richardson does in that game. We'll see if he can handle Brian Flores' defense. And at that point, would Shane Steichen be like, okay, this kid needs to learn a little bit more. Let's go with Flacco. They won the game. Kudos to the Colts, but man, they could maybe make a quarterback change in the next couple of weeks here.
I watched, so I did not watch this whole game. I didn't even pay attention to it when it was on Red Zone. I watched the condensed version that NFL.com puts out.
Yep, watch that too.
And Anthony Richardson he's a very hard watch. At the pro level, I mean, if you're a Bay Area sports fan, it's a lot like Terrell Pryor. You see a lot of these great attributes, and it's so raw there, and maybe the time to coach it up is not there either. That being said, Terrell Pryor played in a different era, and now a player like him would be super valuable. But Anthony Richardson, I mean, that's what got him drafted out of Florida, was the just amazing ability that he has to make big plays. And it's just tough. It's boom or bust with him. And on the other side, the fact that the Dolphins are going to be able to get Tua back is huge for them, because they were on a doom spiral with Huntley. There was no other way around it. Their season was going nowhere fast, so they need him back in a hurry. Good on the Dolphins, even though they were going against kind of a toothless Colts offense without Joe Flacco playing, to keep the score so low. So, I mean, they got one side of the ball, doing okay last week, but you need a quarterback to win. You need an offense. And Huntley completed 9 passes or 10 passes or something.
I think he threw in the 80s yardage wise.
Yeah. So how many weeks are you going to see Tyler Huntley and CJ Stroud throw the same amount of yards yet? But
no,
anyway,
exactly.
That's all I have to say about the game. It's not difficult watch. If you hate yourself, maybe then you watch it.
And one positive from the Dolphins lately is that their defense has played a lot better. So it may be better for them when Tua comes back. They're putting up the points again, and defensively they're playing a lot better. The Seahawks, you picked this game right, Alon. I was surprised the Seahawks came off the 10 days and look like they're 3-0 selves again, and probably the best they played all season offensively. Ryan Grubb, their offensive coordinator, funny enough, the guy that made Michael Penix look so great a year ago on the other side. Went into the game for Kirk Cousins once the game was out of hand. But Seahawks just routed the Falcons. They played good defense. They played good offensive football. DK Metcalf suffering, I believe, an MCL injury, so he's kind of week to week, not out for the season, but kind of week to week with that knee. But yeah, I was thoroughly impressed with the Seahawks, and Kirk Cousins struggled in that game. Seahawks, I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team, but I think every now and then they'll have these games where you're like, oh shit, they went on the road, or they, kicked a playoff team's ass, or like a team that you expect to be good this year in the Falcons.
No, from what I watched of that game, it looked like there was, for whatever reason, a serious team speed difference defensively in the favor of the Seahawks against Atlanta's offense. Really, the only player that I thought was impressive for Atlanta was your guy, Bijan Robinson. But other than that, it looked like they just had every single answer that the Falcons, questions they were trying to pose to them. I don't know if we'll see the Seahawks have this kind of outburst again. The turnovers definitely helped that they were able to generate.
Right.
But yeah, it was a get right game for them. They definitely needed it. And Atlanta, much in the way the Niners are, like, I think they're a good team, but they're just not there yet for whatever reason.
Yeah. And then Saquon Barkley's performance against the Giants. 176 yards on 17 carries. He could have gotten more and probably got over to 200. But if you've seen the clip on NFL Films, Nick Sirianni's like, I would love to get you, more yardage. And he goes, nope, just let the young guys eat. And you got to be impressed with that. Eagles looked as good as they've played since the 2022 season. I thought defensively, I know that they're playing the Giants, and offensively they're not the best, unit. But getting 9 sacks, they finally got pressure from the likes of Josh Sweat and Bryce Huff and their rookie Nolan Smith from a year ago. He was a rookie, second-year player now. The pass rush is coming now. It makes a hell of a lot of difference when A.J. Brown's out there. The 4th and 3 play, they throw deep to A.J. Brown. Hell of a throw, hell of a decision to make. And, yeah, the Eagles just look like a different football team. As far as the Giants, yeah, they're I think Brian Dable may be looking at not having his job at the end of the year. I think that Joe Shane, I'm surprised we're not seeing more stuff from that Hard Knocks over the summertime where Saquon goes crazy on him, and you go back to negotiations where Joe Shane was not willing to pull the trigger on the amount of money, and they decided to go cheaper with Devin Singletary. I don't hate the move. It's not panning out for them. They're not a good team. The one good thing about the Giants right now, Dexter Lawrence. That guy's incredible. Probably the best defensive tackle in all of football. 9 sacks on the season as a nose tackle. He probably won't get Defensive Player of the Year because they're not a good football team. But man, All Pro, whatever you want to throw at him, he is that good of a defender in this league right now.
Oh, totally agree. I also want to shout out Nakobe Dean, who had a huge game for the Eagles as well. Great player out of Georgia who, had a couple of sacks for them. But, the Eagles, good win for them. You're able to down a divisional foe and do it in convincing fashion. But they didn't really have to pass the ball to do it. So I do still have questions about what they're going to look like against stiffer competition. I will say this about Brian Dable. I feel bad for him because I think his cardinal sin was proving that he could win with the quarterback that he has. And that one winning season, the season where they had the most success, is kind of proving to maybe be his downfall.
Yeah, I thought he schemed it up really well that first season, and now it's not happening again for whatever reason. The Vikings are a very good football team. Very good football team. The Lions are just a little bit better. I thought that I was really impressed with the way the Vikings played that game. I thought Aaron Jones was hurt, and that's why they traded for Cam Akers. I got some bad intel. He was there, and he got a touchdown right away, 30-yard run. And Justin Jefferson does what he does against the Lions, still success against that franchise. Defense plays great. They got a huge turnover late in that game to take the lead again, 29-28. But Jared Goff has been incredible this year. He had some early mistakes where he threw some interceptions over the middle, but now he's having games where he's damn near perfect. I think he was 22 of 25 in this game. And, you know, Jair Gibbs picks it up for David Montgomery, who was dealing with an injured knee and fumbling. And he could be a difference maker. Amon St. Brown, having a big impact with a touchdown over the middle. What sucks about the line, and then they get the win. They believe they have a rookie kicker. They get the win, 31-29. They win that game and take over the NFC North. And I was impressed with Sam Darnold. They were down in that game, and he brought him. I kept saying, I want to see a game where Sam Darnold has to come back, and he did everything he had to do. He came back in that game. He threw a bad interception to Brian Branch earlier in the game, but he got him back in that game. It just wasn't enough. What sucks is the Lions have some wide receiver depth right now. They picked up Tim Patrick, and he's playing well for them. They got Khalif Raymond. I believe they also have Allen Robinson on their team as well. I think he's on the practice squad. They may elevate him because Jameson Williams again. He's out last year for half of the season or 6 games because he was gambling, and now he's taken whatever he was, PEDs. I don't know what exactly he took, but he's suspended the next 2 games, and he was playing great up until this point.
No, I mean, you get it's sad because I'm a big JMO fan, and I also love Jahmyr Gibbs, who Roll Tide, but
yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, don't do that. Don't spike your own career by making those kinds of mistakes. You're an important player. Your team's good enough to get by without you for the time being, but you're cutting it pretty close when you win by 2 points. I will say this. That game was interesting because the Vikings had such a hot start, and you knew the Lions were going to come on strong. I just didn't realize that the Vikings were going to go absolutely dormant in the second quarter. And if they just even get a little something going offensively, they probably win that game. But I like your point about Sam Darnold. Like, what does he look like trying to lead a comeback? What does he look like when he's trying to win a game for the team? I think this was a great barometer for them, and they're only going to get better. So in a way, it's one of those, you take your lumps, but you're a better team for it. On the other side, the Lions, I think defensively they need help. And it's obvious that they need some more pass rush. And we went over that earlier in the podcast, but this is going to be, they might have to win a lot more games like this, Derek, where it's 31-29, kind of 5 touchdowns to your 4 touchdowns and see how it shakes out at the end. And I don't think that's the kind of team Dan Campbell wants to have, but that's what he's got right now.
Yep. No, they probably will make a move for a pass rusher before the deadline. The Commanders get a big win over the Panthers, and for whatever reason, I think you were there with me on this, Alon. I picked the Panthers to cover.
I did too.
This Commander offense, Cliff Kingsbury has got something going right now, and Jaden Daniels gets hurt in this game, and he, I don't know if he's going to play this week. He's got the rib issue, but Marcus Mariota came in the game and they didn't skip a beat. And I wonder if it's just Cliff just dialing it up right now. I mean, Marcus Mariota was the 2nd overall pick in a draft back in 2015. But it's just really quarterback friendly. They score 40 points. I was surprised that the Panthers went with Andy Dalton as long as they did. At some point, I thought they go back to Bryce Young. I don't know if they are. There's rumors about maybe potentially wanting to trade him right now. I thought if they lose enough games, you could go back to Bryce, but I don't know. I don't know what to make of the Panthers situation at all. But if Marcus Mariota has to fill in a couple of games for Jaden Daniels, I think that they'll be okay.
I wish he was the Raiders starting quarterback.
Right now, yeah.
And watching that, and I've always liked Mark. He's one of the, most electric players ever, and he was great at Oregon. But his pass where he rolled out to the right and just drops a dime to Zach Ertz in the end zone, and they go up like 27-0 or whatever it was. It was just like, wow, okay, Marcus, you still have it. Yeah. And he can show flashes of that, his mobility. So, yeah, it's Cliff Kingsbury. That offense is super quarterback friendly. I mean, look at the success they're having with a rookie quarterback, and then you bring in a guy who hasn't really had too much significant playing time over the last five years of his career, besides the stint in Atlanta and some gadget plays in Las Vegas. And he comes in and, I mean, he looks like an NFL starting quarterback. He looks better than most quarterbacks. So, yeah, on the Panthers front, probably the worst organization right now in the NFL.
Yeah.
In terms of the things that they're dealing with. And yeah, it's only a matter of time, I guess, until they go back to Bryce Young. But then it's just like, you might ruin his. We don't know what the story on his entire career is, but do you really want to put him back in there? It has not looked good.
It is not, but I want to say there was an interview a couple weeks ago where he was just like, he didn't say his confidence is shattered, but something along those lines. And you're like, "Ooh, man, I don't know if I don't know if they could play this guy anymore." The Bengals are playing the right teams at the right time. They started 1-4, then they go to the Meadowlands and play the Giants. They win that game 2-4. Then they play the Browns this past week. They're 3-4 right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get back in this thing and potentially could make the playoffs. And it was, the Browns defense I think is pretty good. It's just their offense is putrid. And yeah, Joe Burrow found Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and that was enough to win this game. But yeah, Deshaun Watson tears his Achilles. He's out for the season, and a lot of mixed emotions on this. I'll say this. I am not a Deshaun Watson guy. I think it's too hard to overlook all of the stuff that happened off the field. That being said, I don't condone ever rooting for injury. That's just not my style. Yeah. I know Tobin Cope had fun with it today, but I'll be completely honest. I'm not like that. I don't like rooting for injury. Now that being said, if you don't like the man, you don't like the man. I totally respect that. But, and I'll also say this, I know people are like, the Cleveland Browns fans, rooted for him to be injured. It's not like they're rooted for him because they don't like him as a person. I saw enough deplorable things that was said by fans when he was, going to be their starting quarterback. They rooted for him to be injured because he's been terrible, and they don't really care. They just want him off the field. And the truth is, I'm sure behind closed doors, the Browns are like, kind of glad this happened because he's not playing well and we owe him so much money and we're still got to owe him money. The dead cap situation for the next 2 years is so fucked. But I think they'll play better football with Jameis Winston. I really do. Yep. I think that Jameis has had his struggles, but he was also, he was a guy that could be a gunslinger and throw for 5,000 yards and 30-plus touchdowns. Could also throw 30 picks. But I think he'll be fine in this Kevin Stefanski offense. And look at their schedule. I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns start winning games here. That being said, and I know I'm going on a rant here, Alon, and you could chime in when I'm almost done here. But I know people have an issue with Jameis Winston and Myles Garrett backing up Deshaun Watson. Look, I get it. I cannot condone any of the things that Deshaun Watson's accused of. Can't do it. But you're asking these guys about their teammate, and you just put them in a really bad position. They're not thinking about, this is going to sound terrible. They're not thinking about the 20-plus different women that have accused Deshaun Watson of something. They're talking about a teammate, and guys just have different mentality. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. It's just the way they think. I think that cut Myles Garrett and Jameis Winston some slack. It's just a really fucked up situation. I really don't know what to make of it.
No, you know what? I would say they're being leaders, especially Winston in that situation, kind of coming to the aid of their teammate. And like what you said, Derek, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to just, get on board with everybody else who wants to bury the guy? You can't do that because then you lose team cohesion. Even if the end result on the team, it might be better without him. And I think it will be from a play standpoint. So I'm right there with you. Like, you should never root for a player to get injured. I'm not like that either. I don't like it. Do I want to see like another quarterback get smacked or hit or whatever? Sure, rough, but like I'm not rooting for an injury. Obviously,
Yeah, of course.
ever. I do think this team's going to be better with Jameis Winston. I know Stefanski's probably a lot happier. He's going to be able to do some things and count on some throws being able to be made. Here's the thing about the Bengals, and you're right. They are playing the right teams at the right time. I still have very low confidence in them, even with how good the quarterback situation and the offense can be, because their defense is just not there. And I don't know. They're in a tough spot. I don't know if they're better than the Steelers. I don't think they're better than the Ravens, but I'm not really sure exactly where they are right now. I think they have half a football team, but the half they have can win games. That's for darn sure.
And we saw it last year. Like, they were able to win games with Joe Flacco, and I don't know what the deal was. Like, I guess it was just a pure scheme thing to have Dorian Thompson-Robinson be your backup, but I would not play that guy anymore. If anything, I would. I mean, I think the Colts need Joe Flacco, but I could, if you want a quarterback that's similar to Anthony Richardson, trade Dorian Thompson-Robinson to the Colts and then get Joe Flacco to go back to the Browns. If Jameis Winston doesn't cut it, this team can make the playoffs. I still think, I know they're 1-6, but they're talented. If you get Ryan Tannehill or somebody else in there, I wouldn't be surprised if they start playing good football. And I expect Jameis Winston to play good football. But if he's not cutting in and he throws interceptions like he did in New Orleans, then maybe you change things. But I think they're going to play better now.
Jameis Winston was the guy that I wanted the Raiders to get instead of Gardner Minshew. And I think I said that on a podcast one time. But no, I agree with you. They're too talented to be losing this many games. The Browns are. It's interesting you bring up getting back Joe Flacco. The DTR thing I found fascinating. I think they just had to see what they had for an extended period of time because they drafted him as like a real project player and see, can we build this guy into something? And it doesn't look like they have something that, can be a sustainable quarterback for the future. So they got
I wasn't really a fan of him at UCLA either. I thought he had a hard time throwing passes. So
he did.
Yeah. The Sunday night game, everybody thought this was going to be the Jets get right game. And, why are the Steelers benching Justin Fields and going to Russell Wilson? I even thought that. And, man, Mike Tomlin, as he said, this is why he gets paid the big bucks. He made that decision. And while I'll admit that I had my reservations about Justin Fields being the starting quarterback for the rest of the season, I was wondering why the timing of it now. But Russell Wilson, he could be a good fit in this Arthur Smith scheme because he looked like his old self again. So yeah, I thought that the move was a well done move. I thought that Russell Wilson upgraded the Steelers' offense. As far as the Jets, it's going to take some time. Even though Rodgers and Adams know each other from Green Bay, they're still, it's been a while, so they have to get the groove back together again. They'll get Hassan Reddick. I think I would not be the least bit surprised if the Jets still make the playoffs. Would not be surprised. I know they're 2-5, but things get a little easier, maybe, or maybe they just start playing to their expectations. But they're not going to be a playoff team if Aaron Rodgers keeps playing like this. He does not look good, and he lost them this game. I think this was the first time where I thought 100% he had a bad game, and it's not his fault that Garrett Wilson bobbled the ball up and it got picked off, but he missed a lot of throws, and you can't, in Green Bay, it was the same thing where he would look to the sideline and, show his frustration on his face. And there's no more excuses. You got your buddy in Devontae. You got what you wanted. Some might say you got the quarterback, you got the coach fired. You can only do so many things until you realize that the problem is you. So Rodgers, and he owned it after the game. He also kind of blamed the media and said, one thing we're going to do is not listen to you guys. But he owned it. He's not playing well right now.
No, and through 7 games now, it's so weird. I didn't think I would say this, but this might be the norm. This might be Aaron Rodgers. This might just be who he is now. He might never if this is any indication, he won't get back to where he was before. And he's older. He's taken a ton of hits. He's played in brutal games. He's still not getting the best protection, although he had chances to make throws. Obviously, the Devontae and Rodgers connection is going to take some time to develop for the reasons that you laid out, Derek. But they are not a good team. They're a team with a lot of good pieces, and they are not good. And Aaron Rodgers, if he can't get it back, they're not going to win very many games. It's as simple as that, and I don't see how it gets better for them. This is the thing with them, Derek, I can't see them climbing out of it because they've already fired the coach, and I just don't think it gets better from there. I think that's basically saying, well, we got to kind of put a reset button on this somehow, and for whatever reason, do it during the middle of the season, and if it helps us in the very short term, it might. But they're still looking for that first win. After firing the coach. And I know the Steelers are not a fun team to play against because of their defense, but man, Russell Wilson, hey, he looks like he's back. That was the Russell Wilson that all those people in Denver were like, hey, why wasn't this the guy that we had? And he looked good. And he doesn't even have to play as well as he did against the Jets for that team to be super scary come postseason time. He just needs to take care of the ball.
No, you're right, man. If he's able to, some of the passes he was throwing to George Pickens were amazing, and George Pickens coming down with that, and maybe that's why George Pickens was kind of having a little attitude the last couple of weeks because maybe he was like, man, Justin Fields is not getting the ball to me, and now Russell Wilson can. So the Steelers could be, on trending upwards, while the Jets. I mean, let's be real too. Their 2 wins were against the Titans and the Patriots.
Yeah,
2 of the worst teams of football. We'll see how good the Jets are. I still think they can be, but don't know.
One last quick thing on the Steelers too, because I think they're very scary if they keep building and Russell Wilson shows some sustained, like some consistency here with a high level of play. Darnell Washington, I know he doesn't get a lot of targets. I know he's not like this massive receiving threat, but just his body size, his frame at the tight end position for Pittsburgh makes so many matchup nightmares because he's like a 300-pound tight end. So you essentially have a guy who can go out there and catch, and he's an extra offensive lineman every single play. Like, I don't know. They built Mike Tomlin. He gets paid the big bucks. I can't remember a time when he's made a poor decision, and he's doing one of his best coaching jobs this year, I would say.
Sometimes on the football field, I think he's made some questionable 4th down decisions or going for 2. But, yeah, this was the right move to go to Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Lastly, the Monday night games, and shout out to Ernie One for giving me the hookup for ESPN Plus. Thank you, Ernie One. Watched, the Ravens. Man, Lamar looks like a better version of MVP this season as opposed to last year. With the 5 touchdown throws, this offense is humming right now. Don't know about them defensively, but this is the best Ravens offense I've seen in quite some time, probably since 2019 or even some moments last year. But God, Derrick Henry, man, he looks like old Derrick Henry from the Titans. And God, the way he's running downhill, and Lamar looks fantastic. The Ravens are good. They won 5 straight. They're looking like their old selves again, even better probably. The Bucs came back in this game and was unfortunate. Mike Evans gets his 100th touchdown, but then gets injured with the hamstring. And they try to come back in this game. They made it interesting. It was 41-31. Then Chris Godwin's playing late in the game, and unfortunately, he gets caught underneath Roquan Smith and dislocates his ankle, and he's probably going to be out for the season. Then something weird happened last night where people just started coming out on social media and just being like, why was Chris Godwin in that game in the first place? That game was well in hand. And they could have come back and won the game. Like, I'm not blaming Todd Bowles for having him stay in the game. Baker Mayfield was out there. He could have got hurt. It's just unfortunate. Shit like that happens sometimes. But this was the dumbest thing I've seen in quite some time. Somebody posted the rules for the new rules for onside kicks, and someone believed, and actually a lot of people believe, journalists and former football players started questioning the decision to have Chris Godwin out there because some random ass person posted that you cannot do more than 2 onside kicks in a game. So what was the reason that Chris Godwin was out there? Come to find out, that's not a fucking rule.
No.
You can onside kick as many times as you want in the fourth quarter. So I
Yeah.
don't know, like some of these people, like Chase Daniel and Peter Schrager, they were like, I don't know why they did that. Look at the rules. You guys are wrong. You guys are wrong. This is like the epitome of our society now, where some person posts something on social media and everybody thinks it's the fucking gospel. You can onside kick as many times as you want in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
As long as you're down, there's some stipulations, but I can't believe people ran with that shit last night.
All you have to do is declare. I think that's still the only constant besides being down, and you just still have to declare like you would every other time. So, yeah, nothing. I didn't know that happened, but that is quite hilarious. Whatever. Yeah, no, I mean they made it's so stupid. They made a comeback. We should start making up rules on Twitter. We should be like, well, you can't believe so and so's playing the snap because, as you know, you can only play 3 of the last 5 snaps in any.
Just my opinion, man. This is a new rule.
Yeah, exactly. That could be a new segment, the new rule, but it's a Twitter segment. But yet, no, the Bucs had a chance to come back. I mean, they scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and I know they were down 34-10, but boy, I just get the biggest, even though I'm not a Ravens fan, I get the biggest grin watching Derrick Henry play the way he's playing this year. This is the Derrick Henry that I got to see in person in Tuscaloosa play that way. And it's just amazing. He just runs through people, runs away from people. You have that paired up with the way Lamar is playing right now. I mean, that was one of his best performances of all time, maybe his best performance of all time in a regular season game. Todd Monken has totally liberated this offense from everything that Greg Roman was having them do for so many years. And good for them. The defense still needs work, as evidenced by the fact that they give up so many. I mean, at one point they looked like garbage time points, but it could have been a real threat. So against a more complete team, who knows what happens. But, the Ravens, they're freaking dangerous. They are very good. And if that defense just gets a little bit better, I kind of wonder if they're going to make any acquisitions before November 5th. They might.
And then lastly, the other Monday night game on ESPN Plus, the Cardinals get a victory over the Chargers, 17-15. I thought the Cardinals came out more physical than the Chargers did. Just needed, a few touchdowns, and they won that game. I think this is the issue that Jim Harbaugh is going to have with this style of play.
Yep.
If you just keep running the football, some teams are going to stop it. And then Justin Herbert had his best, yardage total last night, throwing for over 300 yards. But they got to have more of a passing game. You and I have talked about this. We all acknowledge that the Chargers needed to run the football every now and then, and they didn't do that as much with Justin Herbert and Brandon Staley the last few years. But man, you are wasting the talent of Justin Herbert, and I think the Chargers need to make a move to get a wide receiver here at the deadline, whether it's getting like a DeAndre Hopkins or maybe Cooper Kupp or anybody else out there, Deontay Johnson. They need to have more of a threat passing the football. They need to be a better red zone offense. They settled for too many field goals last night. They could have won that game, but a questionable pass interference that was picked up because the referee said it was uncatchable. Kind of interesting. That happened. Yeah, they did that. But, I think it's primarily on Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman having a very vanilla, basic offense that can help Justin Herbert at times. But when you have a quarterback of his talents, you need to spread the ball around a little bit more.
Yeah. They're a talented team. They're also maybe the most boring team.
Yes.
To watch. And they have a quarterback who I think is like all world in his talent and has shown he can do just about anything out there. I think from a game management perspective, having that more vanilla and more kind of conventional pro style offense and the tenets of what they want to do can really help in a lot of games that the Chargers would charger in. They would lose under Brandon Staley. But now, I mean, and we've talked about this so much, like you mentioned, Derek, and I said it when he got hired. I was like, well, this is the problem with Harbaugh, is this style that he coaches and the way that his philosophy around the game is this. You got to run the ball, be physical, make no mistakes. Well, not throw it around a lot. And The problem is your margin of error is just so low, and you give yourself no wiggle room there. They finally let Herbert throw the ball. You're right; they do have to get him some receivers who actually can do some things with the ball after the catch, but they're still looking for it. They're trying to find that balance, and I would say that maybe even they found it in this game, even though they lost. Maybe
Yeah.
you Herbert to throw the ball between 29 to 35 times, and then the rest of the snaps be runs. And I think they'll just be fine. But the fact that it's taken what 6 weeks, seven games, 6 games for them now to find out that this guy can throw the ball for more than 250 yards. I mean, to me, that's just a joke. How did you not know that coming into the job? And I know he's still brand new, and Greg Roman is new with that team too. But hell, we just talked about an offense that Greg Roman was the coordinator for a bunch of years, and now with Todd Monken, they're doing crazy stuff that doesn't involve just running the ball. And I'm seeing the same thing happen here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I was never a big Greg Roman guy. I kind of questioned the decision to go to him, but I mean, they're running the football better, just not last night. And they need to get the passing game going. It's as simple as that. They have a great quarterback. That's the reason why Harbaugh wanted to take the job. Let him throw a little bit more.
Yeah, let him throw.
And that's the recap from Week 7 in the NFL. We went through every game. Yeah. So real quick before we get out of here, Alon, you weren't able to join me on Saturday, and we were going to preview some of these college football games. And man, both of our schools had huge games and did not win. So I'll take the floor on Texas. Give me your thoughts on Alabama's loss to Tennessee.
A game that should have been won. No, Kalen DeBoer is having a really rough time his first season in the SEC. I knew he was going to have some hiccups. Didn't think Vanderbilt would be one. Kind of thought that the two would be LSU and Tennessee. Tennessee is now turned into one. Tough place to play, third Saturday of October. Jalen Milroe, all the things that they were doing maybe in the first 3 or 4 weeks, especially like in the Wisconsin game or even in the first half of the Georgia game, they just seem like they're not being called. Or if they are, they're not being executed. I think there has not been a big enough commitment to the run game and the quarterback power game as well. I also think that he has lost the command of the football team at times. I've seen more penalties and more kind of unsportsmanlike things happening. For instance, the jump shot during a quarterback sneak. Two wide receivers did that during a play. They acted like they took a fadeaway jump shot when they should be blocking or at least doing something on the play. And the coaching staff, Ryan Sheridan, the offensive coordinator, said, there's nothing on the field that happens that we don't coach. And I'm just like, Kalen, it's okay to get in some people's faces sometimes. It's okay to hold people to a standard. I still have faith in him. He's been a winner everywhere he's gone. It's a different era now. Obviously, it wasn't going to be the same as it was with Saban. But this team is too talented from an offensive standpoint to not score points. And they've already proven that they can. Defensively, I thought they were okay. They finally got things going in the right direction defensively, so I hope that continues. But I think playoffs are still there for the taking. They're just going to have to finish undefeated. So missed opportunity from Alabama. Tough to lose to Tennessee, and I'm kind of getting sick of losing to Tennessee, to be honest.
Don't blame you. And if my one takeaway from this game, I watched it. It was entertaining. Jalen Milroe has a lot to work to do as a passer. I think that he looked fantastic against Georgia, but those were just some freakish throws. I think that he's got to make better decisions, and he can move with his legs, but he's got to work as a passer if he wants to make it to the next level. And then the main attraction Saturday night was Texas, Georgia. All the big names were out there. McConaughey, Joe Rogan was there. Just a lot of faces for if you're around Texas, just a lot of big people were there. Kevin Durant showed up. The truth is, I've been saying this, Texas has not played anybody that really challenged them. They played the likes of Colorado State and just other teams that you're like, UTSA, Arch Manning was able to get his feet wet against those teams. They had the win in Michigan, and that was impressive. They played Oklahoma last week, but Oklahoma, their quarterback could barely complete a pass. So I thought that wasn't really anything crazy either. I thought that it was just I thought Quinn Ewers was rattled. I've seen that face on him too many times. He did not look comfortable in that game. There's very good moments from Quinn Ewers, but I would say mostly negative times with Quinn Ewers. And you nailed it, Alon. If they were not able to run the football, you thought Georgia was going to win this game, and that was the case. They were not able to run at all. And yeah, Arch, was probably brought in there because he can move a little bit more. But I never thought well they're gonna go to Arch Manning and they're gonna win this game. I just thought that maybe they could get back into it, but yeah, it was not there. It was not their night. It was a reality check that Texas is now in the SEC and they need to hang with the big boys now. There's going to be games where they get smacked in the mouth. Georgia should be number one. They are the best team in football. They have the best defense. Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions, did not matter. Crazy circumstance where he threw a pick. It looked like it should have been a clean call, interception. I thought it was a bullshit call to call that back, and it was pass interference, whatever the call was. Defensive holding, not sure. And then fans throw bottles on the field.
Yeah.
And then after a good deal of time, then the refs overturn the call. What kind of horrible precedent is that? I thought it was a terrible call. It was a terrible call. I thought that it was not pass interference. But you can't change that call well after the fact. I always believe that. I hate that. If you make the call, then you can't change it 5 minutes later, whatever it was. It wasn't 5 minutes, but it was a good deal of time. And I understand why Kirby Smart's upset. So reality is Texas just got punched in the mouth. It was a welcome to the SEC moment, and hopefully they learn from it. But they're not ready to hang with the physical teams of the SEC just yet, in my opinion.
No, it was a good wake up call for this team, especially building off of what they had last year, going to the college football playoff. They're definitely going to make the playoff this year. I don't think there's any question about that. Quinn Ewers needs to be a little bit more consistent, and you know what? I will say this: they ran into a buzzsaw with Georgia. This was the best and most intense that I've seen Georgia play since like a national championship game. Since they beat Alabama in the national championship a couple years ago. They were playing lights out defensively. That being said, overturning the call. I mean, the referee, I get it. You're a little scared for the entire officiating. Like, you don't want to be walking out into the parking lot or anything like that. But at the same time, you can't be like, well, this is getting bad. Maybe we should placate the fans and reverse this. So, but it was a great weekend of college football, even though both our teams lost. At least for the most part, they were entertaining games. Texas did start to make a comeback bid there. I think it was 23-15. But they just didn't have enough juice offensively for whatever reason. And a lot of that is on Quinn. But some of that's on Sark, too. I mean, he's calling the damn plays.
No, he is. And, I just think Texas is not ready in the SEC. They were not ready to take on their biggest challenge yet, and probably the biggest challenge in all of college football. Alabama was, incredible to put up 41 points on the defense. Don't know how they did that. Texas,
I don't either.
We'll see how they fare the rest of the way in the SEC. It's not good. It's like the rest of the schedule's okay, but in future years, we'll see how they handle things because now they're playing the big dogs. Another big outcome that happened in college football. USC losing to Maryland. I watched that game. That was fun. It's not like Lincoln Riley's going to get fired, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys job opens up and Lincoln Riley's like, "Get me the hell out of here. I'm tired. I'm tired." Like if Jerry, if you want to get me to Dallas and I'll go back home to Texas and you get me a nice defensive coordinator, I will gladly coach the Cowboys. I don't think he's fit to run the USC Trojans for the long haul.
Well, yeah, he's not. I don't like watching USC lose. Just being from California, it's nice to have California teams be good. My dad grew up a USC fan. Obviously, he's an Alabama fan now because of me. But I said this, I think, on our podcast when we previewed some college football a month and a half, 2 months ago. I said, I think USC is the most overrated ranked team heading into the season. I thought they were not going to be a good team. They're 3-4 now, and They've lost in every which way you can possibly lose to all levels of competition. Not that Mike Loxley and Maryland are like a bad squad by any means over there, but I mean, come on, you're USC. Look at the talent you have. You had this guy, Miller Moss, that everybody thought, oh, this is, they're going to just reload with him after Caleb Williams. Well, they've lost that close game to Penn State. They can't get it done against Maryland. I mean, they're just, I'm with you. I wouldn't be surprised if Lincoln Riley's just like, you know what? This job kind of sucks.
Yeah.
The amount of work that goes into it, the amount of pressure that goes into it, I'd rather just go do straight football and that's it. Just football only.
Yep. Wouldn't be surprised about that. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for tonight. A lot of football talk. And we will be back on Friday afternoon at 11. Me and Alon will... You all right?
I saw Rockin' New Era just posted something. Oh, my God. Fernando Valenzuela died.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. 1 hour ago, reported by TMZ.
Oh, shit. What happened?
I don't know, but only 63 years old. So rest in peace, Fernando.
Oh, that sucks.
Bring that up at the end of a show.
Yeah, rest in peace there. They have a cause of death. Hospitalized from an undisclosed illness. Yeah. That's too bad.
That's really sad.
Yeah, rest in peace there. Well, there's never a good transition, but yeah, we'll be back on Friday. To go over what's the Thursday night game this week. Oh, real quick before we get out of here, I guess we'll do that. Vikings and Rams. Maybe Cooper Kupp's last game as a Ram here. Let's see here. The Vikings are 3-point favorites, and the over/under is 48.5. What do you say here, Alon?
Give me the under and give me the Rams to win.
I will do the same. Actually, I think the Rams win this game.
Yeah, I think the Rams are good enough to win this game, and the Vikings just went through a freaking slobber knocker the other day with the Lions, and that's
I think Sean McVay knows how to beat his former protege and Kevin O'Connell. All right, everybody, that's going to do for tonight. We'll be back on Friday, like I said, 11 o'clock. We will pick games for Week 8. God, I can't believe we're already at Week 8. And, we'll go over the Thursday night game. If it's entertaining enough, if it's like a repeat of Broncos Saints, then we won't discuss it that much. But, yeah, and we may go over some potential trade possibilities next podcast. May do that. Until then, thanks everybody in the chat tonight. To Ernie 1, Ernie 2, and AJ Cruz sticking out with us late tonight. We'll see you guys on Friday. Until then, Alon, say we always say on this fine program.
Hey, that's just your opinion, man.